Check out the official Geekdom 101 merch store. Right now, we've got all of our designs 25% off. And if you order now, you can get these designs to yourself or to your loved ones just in time for the holidays. We've got shirts, hats, hoodies. You can get prints. You can get cell phone cases, all kinds of different merch in multiple sizes, and of course, delivers anywhere, well, almost anywhere in the world. So don't forget to get yours today, 25% off for a limited time. And if you order today, you'll get it before Christmas. We have arrived at episode 10 of Dragon Ball Daima, and man, what an episode it was. They packed so much into this episode. All these pacing issues we've been discussing, I've been critical of it, and I was worried they were going to cram a lot in. Well, this episode certainly was that, because this episode had everything. It had badass fights, it had action, it had comedy, it had a bunch of lore. It really was a lot like episode 8 in that the first half of episode 10 was pretty much all action. It was all action and very little of everything else. A little bit of comedy, a little bit of talking, but mostly action. Then the second half of the episode is when finally things start to simmer down and we get to Demon World number 2, and that's when we get a bunch of lore. Not only is the gang finally together in one place, all 8 of our big characters, Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Bulma, Hibis, Glorio, Pansy. Did I miss one? I think that's it. Yeah, that's all of them. Anyways, by the end of the episode, they're all together and the story goes on. Now, the episode first started, the very first thing we saw was Majin Cou versus Tamagami 1. Now, I talked about how Majin Cou is not the final villain. He's supposed to be goofy. He's not meant to be taken seriously, and this episode illustrated that in a better way than I ever could. Majin Cou is a goof. The way he fights Tamagami 1, his very weird movements, his very unusual sort of combat strategy, he makes a lot of weird noises. It's kind of like, remember how in Dragon Ball Z, when Kid Buu is fighting Goku and Vegeta and he's like kind of toying with them and mocking them and laughing at them. So Majin Cou is doing that, except he's losing. Tamagami 1 is not one to be messed with. I do believe the Tamagamis get stronger as you move up the ladder. So Tamagami 3 was the weakest one. Tamagami 1 is the strongest. And Majin Cou busted out a lot of different types of techniques, lots of different types of ki blasts. He can definitely manipulate ki just as quickly as Kid Buu could, Majin Buu could, creating green energy balls, turning into a tornado, all types of different moves. But Tamagami 1 was just in the fight, just in there. Tamagami 1 is going to become a fan favorite character. I could already tell you that. He's got that like hit, sort of silent assassin kind of vibe to him. Plus his weapon is like a sword that's also a saw. Incredibly badass. So what I loved is that here we have in this fight a representation of what I think is one of Toriyama's coolest designs, Tamagami 1, versus Majin Cou, one of Toriyama's goofier designs. I mean, like I said, he's supposed to look goofy. He's not serious. He's a counterfeit Majin Buu. Marba said in episode 8 that Majin Buu was like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. That Majin Buu was like basically a fluke, so to speak. Like he was somebody who cannot just be replicated. So Majin Cou being part Cyberman with a little bit of Majin Buu and, you know, obviously Dr. Arinsu's saliva, whatever that does, is not going to be on the same level of like a Kid Buu, especially when it comes to destructive power. So this fight was fun. Meanwhile, what's going on the other side of things is Goku once again has to get the pointy ears, and they end up going to Warp to get to Demon World 2. So finally, they don't waste any time. They don't go see the king. They don't goof around. They're in Demon World 2, and there they have to deal with two different obstacles. One is this giant whale-like creature in the water, and the other is the military police chasing after them with their ships. So we have this like Star Wars-esque action-packed like battle in the skies where Glorio's showing off his Han Solo piloting skills. He's flying around. They're blasting. They're just blasting each other. I feel like we're watching Super again, bro. Remember when I used to do this shit during Super? So they're blasting each other. Glorio's flying in between them. Goku's like, fuck it, I'll take care of this. Gets outside the ship, bro. And it resembles the stuff that Goku did in the Red Ribbon arc of Dragon Ball and what he did in the early Dragon Ball movies, like the Blood Rubies movie / Legend of Shenron, where he's got the stick, he's got the incredibly powerful Nioibo, and he's just battering these ships, dude. It was such a beautiful thing to see. So you got a little bit of OG Dragon Ball, a little bit of Star Wars, and while that's going on, we're cutting over to Majin Cou versus Tamagami, which is a fight straight out of Dragon Ball Z. So again, it's what I've been saying, y'all. Daima has a mix of Z, GT, OG Dragon Ball heroes. This episode had it all. So the Majin Cou fight was very well animated, beautifully animated. In fact, they're going at it. Tamagami 1 is just, again, keeping his cool. You know what I'm saying? Defending that 1-star demonic Dragon Ball. Dr. Arinsu is there watching the fight. Cou doesn't get the job done, man. He doesn't get killed. Because remember, when you challenge a Tamagami, it's not a fight to the death. If you surrender, or if the Tamagami surrenders, it's more of a martial arts type of thing, like a tournament, where you don't try to kill the opponent. All you have to do is defeat the Tamagami to get the Dragon Ball. We saw that with Goku and Tamagami 3. But Majin Cou, it ain't his day. It ain't his day. But man, it was fun seeing him. It was so much fun seeing him go in there and try everything. And Tamagami 1 was just chilled. Just like, he's going to be a fan favorite, mark my words. So while all this is going on, they have this scene with a giant whale, which again, I don't want to say it every week, but this is Star Wars. It's The Empire Strikes Back. The giant whale grabs and swallows Goku. It's a fake out. They make it out. And then meanwhile, while that's all going on, there's some jokes with Hybis. And Hybis doesn't really understand, like, he finds out that Kakarot and Goku are the same guy because he didn't understand why Vegeta kept calling him Kakarot. You know, he's the fish out of water. He's the character that doesn't know anything, right? He's obviously got sort of that dumb face, like that kind of, you know, slow poke type of face. So they get to Demon World 2, and it resembles Planet Namek because that's the original home world of the Namekians. And this is stuff we've been talking about for weeks now. If you've been watching my breakdown videos, which by the way, tomorrow night, I'm going to have a huge breakdown video based on this because there's a lot of information that was revealed here that ties directly into Dragon Ball Super, including a cameo from Gowasu, like in a flashback. And that's right, we're talking about the same Gowasu that was a key player in the future Trunks arc of Dragon Ball Super. He's appearing here because there's a whole bunch of backstory that they reveal. The Demon World 2 is the home of the Glins and the Namekians. So I had kind of speculated when I interviewed last week. I interviewed Nassim Belancourt, the English dub voice of Piccolo Mini, and we discussed that one of the big reasons as to why Piccolo is on this quest in the Demon Realm is so that he can find out more about his history, so that we as an audience can find out more about the Namekian history and how that all ties in with the Supreme Kais and how that all ties in with Dabura. Everything ties together here. This is a massive, massive lore dump, one of the biggest we've seen in Daima thus far. But I knew they were going to do it. And to be honest, this was the episode to do it, get it out of the way. The lore masters and the lore lovers like me eat this shit up. Because next week, folks, next week's episode, Dragon Ball Daima episode 11, Vegeta versus Tamagami 2. I'm not done talking about episode 10, but that just tells me that most of the lore information was probably, but not all of it. I would assume not all of it, but most of it was given to us here, and we're going to progress the story as Vegeta is going to get his shot at Tamagami 2. So we're getting a lot of Tamagami battles in a relatively close proximity. So the series is picking up steam now and picking up the pace. This was probably my favorite episode of the show so far. I liked it a little bit more than episode 10. Let me get to a bit more of this lore stuff though. Also, something funny, when they first got to Demon World 2 and Goku recognized it as looking like Planet Namek, we saw Frieza. We saw a flashback of the events of the Frieza saga very quickly. The fact that he blew up Planet Namek and that Goku fought him there. So, it was only for a second, but seeing my favorite villain, Frieza, in a small cameo was cool to see. So that little planet that we've been seeing in the trailers and in some of the promotional spots, that's the original home of the Namekians. Demon Realm 2 or Demon World 2 is different than Demon World 1. Remember how World 1 was like a lot of little islands that are floating with this like bottomless pit? With World 2, it's almost like an ocean with these sort of floating planets, and one of them is the original home world of the Namekians. Again, this is stuff that we kind of already knew ahead of time, or at least suspected. We suspected it. I talked about it in a breakdown video several weeks ago. Now we have confirmation from the Supreme Kai himself. So it's weird. It's almost like a planet within like a universe, but the universe seems like you're on a planet. It's very hard to explain. It's very cosmic. It's like it's not as small as like King Kai's planet, Kai Osama's planet. It's like that though. And remember how that was like a planet sort of in the middle of this macrosphere? That's kind of like what this is. Like this universe just has an ocean at the bottom, so it feels like you're on a planet. But there are planets above that ocean. I know it seems like it's very science fiction. It seems like a difficult thing to understand, but it's again, some of that real crazy world building we've been seeing from the Demon Realm. So they go into the origin of the Demon Realm. Now, this is stuff I'm going to break down, again, in much more detail in tomorrow's breakdown video, but I'll give you the cliff notes of it here and my thoughts on it. There was this, like, king of the demons many, like a long time ago. This is even before Abra, although Abra's mentioned. So he sends a Glind, and he was instructed to create the outer universes. So this is literally the creation of the Dragon Ball multiverse. This is the deepest lore we've ever had actually stated in the show. This is all stuff that you would normally see from guidebooks and Daizenshu's and all that. Now it's officially in the Dragon Ball, in a product that Toriyama worked on that is anime/manga, like something that he worked on. Not just a guidebook, it's actually in universe now said by a character. So there's a lot of speculation about how old the Demon Realm is, and apparently the Demon Realm existed before the multiverse. That's wacky. Now this Glind is apparently still alive. He is not dead, and he is the highest ranking god. So the character's name is like Limes or Rhymes. It just depends on what translation you want to go by. So he's supposed to be the god of all gods. Now the obvious question is, wait a minute. Dragon Ball Super said that the god of all gods was Zeno, the Omni King, the god of everything, the man at the, maybe not a man, the boy at the top of the multiverse. And then what ends up happening is the Glinds, some of them were sent into the multiverse to watch over them as gods of creation. And we actually see Gowasu, and we see the Supreme Kais that we already saw in Super. It's the same designs. It's the same exact characters. The Universe 6 Supreme Kais. The same ones we saw in the Tournament of Power. The same exact ones. Gowasu's, of course, the Supreme Kai, the Kaioshin of Universe 10. I kept telling people, going back months, that Dragon Ball Daima takes place before Super, but after the Majin Buu saga. And there were several people saying, oh, it's a different continuity. It's a different canon. It's not. It is not. However, there are still some unanswered questions, which I'm sure we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks, because there's still a lot of information that has not been revealed yet. So Shin reveals that in the past, people were able to go from the Demon Realm to the Outer Realm with no problem, but then when Demon King Abra took over, Dabura's father, the one that had that third eye that we talked about, that was changed. And it was Abra that, because he was probably afraid of being overthrown, didn't want any of the outsiders from the outside world, from the outside multiverse, to come into the Demon Realm. And that's where the whole password system with Warp was, where it was birthed. So there was a group of Glinds that escaped the Demon Realm to get away from Abra, And this episode also does confirm that humans and Saiyans, specifically those two races, although there's probably tons of other races in the universe as well. We've seen them throughout the course of the various Dragon Ball, manga, Dragon Ball Z, all that stuff, that they all sort of were created through the regular passage of time, through evolution and things of that nature. So they are not from the demon realm. That was a big theory. The Saiyans were born from the demon realm. According to what the Supreme Kai said in this episode, that is not the case. So there's a lot to unpack here when it comes to Limes and Zeno, and I'm going to go into all of this in my breakdown tomorrow, as well as my explanation of how these two entities can exist, because they can. And actually, there are clues in Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Daima that will tell us these answers. I will bring it all to you tomorrow in the breakdown. The episode ends with Neva, that's right, the Namekian, going all the way back to episode 1, that first sort of turn the Dragon Balls back on to make the wish to make them all kids. He appears as the good guys, as the main team all go into a ship. He walks up like laughing, like almost maniacally, and that's your cliffhanger for next week. Next week, Vegeta battles Tamagami 2. Man, what an episode. A bunch of goofiness at the beginning, a fun fight. Majin Cou is a fraud, but the fight was still fun to watch. And the little like plane battle was cool, and the lore was cool. So I enjoyed this one quite a bit. The pacing, if the pacing is gonna be like this from now on, man, I'll be happy. I'll be happy. They can't slow it back down again, at least not for a while, because things are going in a relatively good pace right now, and they're cramming. They're using their time wisely. Okay. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Have a good one.